Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 11th November 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing a couple of issues. One with respect to the air pollution and the smog. What should be the kind of governance model that we should follow to ensure that air pollution problem is not a recurring problem every year? And what are the long-term solutions? The second one is with respect to international relations and which has an implication on the prelims exam as well. Let us continue to understand these issues.
This article taken from the Indian Express, titled Not Ready for Smog Battle, is about how the states and center are differently empowered when we are talking about the problem of air emergency of pollution. So, this is an interesting way to start an essay. It can also be employed in our essay writing as well. So, the essay starts with this. The author is talking about a government building in Faridabad, which happens to be a state pollution control board, and the other one where officials from higher echelons of executive and higher bureaucracy from the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change and all the think tanks are seated together in a plush five-star hotel, and the author presents the difference between the way state governments are treating the problem of pollution and the center. So, on one hand, this office in Faridabad has run out of papers for printing. On the other hand, we have every sort of a resource that is required to understand the problem of air pollution at the center. So, this is a sort of a analogy which signifies the importance of state governments in handling this problem of air pollution. Unless and until we have states that are empowered to carry out the decisions that are made by the center, this problem of air pollution will persist. So, the most commonly understood theme when we're talking about environment as such is it should start from grassroots level. So, it is not even the state pollution control board which is responsible for handling the air pollution. It should actually start from gram panchayat level and urban local bodies. So, unless and until we have actions on this front, there is hardly any change because the real country resides in the villages and towns. Of course, one might argue that cities are the major centers for controlling the pollution because it is where most of the industrial activity, greenhouse gas emissions actually happen. That is true. Even for that, we need to empower the urban local bodies who neither have the funds nor the power to get things done, and definitely not the funds required for carrying out this. The capacity to tax people is also absent completely. In a simple way, urban local bodies are simply not capable enough to handle this problem of air pollution alone. So, this can be cited as a reason by policymakers to take over this subject and legislate at a national level. But we have to understand that unless and until we empower these urban local bodies, this problem of air pollution will continue for years together. To illustrate how the state governments are being treated or taken into confidence with respect to the issue of pollution, the author quotes an example of how a state pollution control board officer is reduced to pure clerical work. We're talking about the NGT mandated special environment surveillance team. So there will be one officer who is actually supposed to be a state pollution control board officer mandated with carrying out inspections. He will be the same person to coordinate this NGT mandated special environment task force. So he will be running around offices to organize these meetings, and with the kind of bureaucratic hassles that we have, there is hardly any work done. So this, since it is a judicial mandate, he will prioritize this activity and leave this activity behind. Now this is a much more important activity because unless and until inspections happen, there is hardly any compliance there. So how will you ensure that both these activities are carried out by the same person? It is because of this reason we need to have more officers on board. Secondly, R&D activities don't necessarily happen at the state pollution control boards. They're reduced to mere executive agents. But contrast that with the Central Pollution Control Board, they have a array of scientists who are participating on various platforms with respect to this issue of air pollution and climate change. Thirdly, skills. Just like many other state government departments, the state pollution control boards don't have the necessary skills to execute the task. This is because of lack of capacities building measures. So we have to work upon capacity building immediately, and there should be a allocated budget separately for that. This is in the interest of the entire idea of controlling the pollution. The next issue is that of funds. Just like any other concurrent subject, even the state government departments are usually faced with the problem of funds, functions, and functionaries. That is, lack of funds, lack of powers, and lack of skills to do certain executive tasks. So, the same logic extends here also. We don't have the necessary funds to carry this out, like I've just spoken in the initial point of this slide. So, our fight on pollution cannot happen without addressing these issues. Only then we'll see certain positive results with respect to our battle against pollution. That is the gist of this article.
The second article for the day is taken from the Indian Express and it is titled Armenia Azerbaijan agree to end fight in Nagorno Karabakh. Let us understand the background of this area as you can see in this map. This is not a new conflict. We are talking about a 30-year-old unresolved ethno-territorial conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So this is regarding this area as you can see in the map called Nagorno Karabakh. Like many other international issues, this region is very complicated due to the fact that there are a lot of powers like Russia, Turkey, Europe, etc., which are trying to extend their influence in this region to secure their own security, strategic, as well as economic interests. As far as the strategic importance of the region is concerned, it is important because of the energy exports. The stability of the region is very important for regional growth and it has a huge reserves of oil. So it will also impact oil importing countries like ours. So India will also be impacted because of the lack of stability in this region. Further, the conflict may also cause geopolitical unrest in the region, which is already suffering COVID-19 pandemic like every other part of the world. So this is the reason why all these regional powers have intervened in the issue to stop this from becoming a full-blown regional conflict, just like in the case of Syria or Yemen or any other place that is ridden by conflict which has repercussions across the region. Let us try to understand the genesis of this conflict. Where did this conflict actually start? What is the center of this conflict? We are talking about Nagorno Karabakh, which is located within Azerbaijan, but it is populated mostly by Armenian ethnicity. It is because of this region, Armenia sees that there is an emotional connect with the region and wants that region to be a part of Armenia, but that is simply not possible because it is geographically isolated from Armenia. So the background of the conflict goes something like this. It can be traced back to the pre-Soviet era, that is, all these countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, etc., were a part of the USSR regime. So in the pre-Soviet era, when the region was at the meeting point of Ottoman, Russian and Persian empires, this place was filled with Armenians rather than Azerbaijanis. So once Azerbaijan and Armenia became Soviet republics in 1921, which is the erstwhile USSR, so this region was given to Azerbaijan but offered autonomy to the contested region. By 1980s, it was very clear that USSR was losing the power that it had once, and since the Soviet power was receding, separatist currents picked up in this region of Nagorno Karabakh. So in 1988, the National Assembly voted to dissolve the region's autonomous status and join Armenia, because mostly it consisted of Armenians. But Azerbaijan resisted, suppressed such calls, and this led to a military conflict. The reason why Azerbaijan was very skeptical about giving away this piece is because naturally you can imagine a foreign country territory which is within our own country is a threat to our national security as well. So Azerbaijan suppressed all such calls. So this became a flashpoint of conflict, and the self-declaration of independence by Nagorno-Karabakh in September 1991, in the backdrop of an collapse of USSR, resulted in a war. So what happened was in 1994 there was a ceasefire agreement between the two parties, and this was mediated by Russia directly. How does it affect India? If you take a look at the asymmetry in relations, with Armenia, India has a friendship and cooperation treaty that is signed in 1995 itself. So this incidentally would prohibit India from providing military assistance to Azerbaijan completely. In this case, Azerbaijan is also important to us because we have ONGC investments, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation investments, in the oil field project in Azerbaijan. So even GAIL, which is another PSU in the energy sector, is exploring the possibilities of cooperation in this region with respect to energy security. So we have our economic interests on one hand, and with Armenia we have a friendship treaty which is stopping India to take a concrete action. But why should we actually involve in this regional conflict is the question. In this context, you have to understand INSTC, that is the International North-South Transport Corridor, which connects India with Russia through Central Asia. So this connectivity is very crucial because we are trying to utilize the oil resources in this region. It can also connect India with Turkey and beyond the Baku region, which is here somewhere, which is the capital of Azerbaijan. And this will actually connect the freight rail link that is present here with Central Asia. So this can be a nodal point through which we can enter into Central Asia. Similarly, Armenia extended its support to India on Kashmir issue. Therefore, Armenia is also equally important for us. On the other hand, like I've already discussed, Azerbaijan not only opposes but also promotes Pakistan narrative on this issue. So on this front, we have a issue in the form of Azerbaijan, because even though we have economic interest, but strategic interest should always be the point of concern, because we are talking about a issue that requires international support like Kashmir. India does not have a publicly articulated policy for this region. Say, for example, if we are talking about our neighborhood, we have the neighborhood first policy. And if you're talking about the East Asia, we have Act East policy. But when we're talking about the Central Asian region, there is no such policy. We go on a issue by issue basis. So the region has remained on the periphery of its foreign policy radar for a very long time now. Therefore, we have to pick a stance for this region to come up with our strategic as well as our economic interest and safeguard them comprehensively. So the latest update on this front is Russia has again intervened and ensured that there is a peace in this region. So the road that leads to Armenia from Nagorno-Karabakh has been safeguarded by Russian peacekeepers, as seen in this news. So it is called the Lachen Corridor. It can be an important news item if prelims exam is concerned. Similarly, there is another city of Azerbaijan called Agdam, and Armenia was asked to vacate that place to safeguard the interests of Azerbaijan and to ensure that there is no threat to their sovereignty in this region. So this is the ceasefire agreement that has been finally arrived at. So the important takeaway from this news item is not just about the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, but also about India's need for a foreign policy in the Central Asian region. That is the key takeaway that I want you to extend your understanding to.
We don't have a concrete policy with respect to Central Asian region, and it is a very important area. To not have a foreign policy in this region is a serious setback for our diplomacy.